There is a door inside you that you pass every day and refuse to open. You feel it in the quiet between distractions, in the pause after someone says your name, in the sudden acceleration of your heart when you are alone and the masks slip. The door is small, but it is heavy. On the other side is a room you don't show anyone, not your friends, not your family, not even the person in the mirror you try to convince you've got it together. The room is not empty. It is crowded with what you pretend you don't feel, anger that wasn't safe to show, envy you coat in thin jokes, pride you confuse with self-respect, fear wearing the jacket of politeness, the parts of you that were punished, mocked, shamed, or ignored. They didn't disappear. They learned to whisper, and they learned to steer. People talk about fate as if it were etched in the sky, as if life is a script written in stars you can't reach. But fate, as it touches your life, is often nothing more than decisions you didn't allow yourself to admit you were making. Patterns, reflexes. The hands of a puppet you pretend not to see. You think you're choosing, but your choices were chosen for you by the things you refuse to meet. Jung gave a name to the hidden figure behind the door. He called it the shadow. Not because it is evil, but because it waits where you won't look. Not because it wants to ruin you, but because it wants to be seen. The persona, the mask you wear to move through the world, is made of smiles and agreements, of what is rewarded and what keeps the peace. That is how you survive, but the other side of survival is everything you had to cut away to fit in. There is a cost to being acceptable. You amputate. You narrate your wounds as wisdom. You deny the teeth that protected you when nobody else did. Look at your life, the friend you always rescue, the argument you keep having with different faces, the job you dream about but refuse to pursue, the sabotage that always arrives when you're close to getting what you wanted. Watch yourself when you are praised. Do you relax, or do you tighten, waiting for the strike? Watch yourself when you are ignored. Do you shrink, or do you sharpen? The shadow speaks in these moments. It doesn't shout. It tilts your head an inch, and your life veers. 1 inch. 1,000 miles. You think you're nice because people say you are. But your niceness may be a strategy to avoid conflict and secure safety. A soft glove over a hand that is terrified of showing its claws. You think you're humble because you downplay your work, but humility is not the same as hiding. Sometimes hiding is a quiet lie told to avoid responsibility. You think you're moral because you despise certain sins, but hatred is often a mirror turned outward, so you don't see yourself. You attack in others what you're allergic to in your own blood. You call them monsters to keep your own monster asleep. But it isn't asleep. It eats your time. It eats your desire, one denial at a time. We misunderstand darkness. We talk about it like it's outside of us, in criminals on screens or rumors in news feeds. But darkness is ordinary. It is the part of you that wants control because it grew up helpless, the part that plans escape before trouble arrives, the part that hoards affection because it expects drought. If you are always agreeable, your darkness will choose partners who use you, because it wants to prove your fear was right. If you flee when things get good, your darkness will sabotage your victories, because feeling worthy of joy would threaten the story you built to explain your pain. If you seek status and call it ambition, your darkness will keep you running until you forget why you started moving. We don't have the courage to admit what we want, so we pretend we want something else. We say we just want peace, but we crave power over our own life, and it terrifies us. Responsibility is heavy. It demands that you name what you will do with your days, your body, your mind. It demands that you take the blame when the choice is yours. Easier to say, fate, and bow to the habit. Easier to say, I had no choice, and let the patterns govern. But that is the quiet erosion of a life. Stone wears away, not with explosions but with water, drip by drip, until the face is unrecognizable. The shadow loves secrecy. It is fed by averted eyes. It is strengthened by every moment you choose distraction over discomfort. It grows calm when you scroll instead of feeling. It smiles when you get righteous over someone else's mistake, while ignoring your own. You feel strong in those moments. You feel superior. But superiority is another mask. Under it is a child who wasn't allowed to be wrong without being unloved. Under it is the old wound that concluded, I must be right to be safe. The cost is heavy. You can't learn if you can't be wrong. You can't love if you can't risk losing face. You can't make art if you can't be laughed at. Pride guards your fear while your life starves behind the gate. If you want power, you will have to walk through that door. Not to annihilate the shadow, but to listen. The worst choices you make are not born of too much darkness, but of darkness you deny. Denied anger becomes passive aggression that poisons your home. Denied envy becomes a smile at a friend's success that feels like swallowing glass. Denied pride becomes martyrdom that resents, resents, gives, until you explode and say things you can't take back. Your fate is a rhythm set by repressed drums. If you won't hear them in the room, you'll dance to them on the street. So ask the dangerous questions. What am I hiding because I'm afraid of who I'll be if I admit it? Who am I pretending to be for approval? What would I have to sacrifice to stop being a victim of my story? If you feel the flinch right now, good. The flinch is where the key lies. Most people live a whole life protecting an image of themselves that never existed. They take jobs to avoid their talent. They marry so they're not alone with their reflection. They dream in public and then make sure real life is too busy for action. The shadow is satisfied. It will keep you safe at the cost of your soul's shape. You think this is harsh, it is. But it is not cruel. The cruelty is pretending that the mask will be enough. The cruelty is telling yourself that fate is a storm without a captain, when the truth is the captain is asleep because you drugged them with comfort. Wake them. Wake yourself. The people you choose are not accidents. The roles you play in a room are not random. You repeat what hurts, because what hurts is familiar, and the familiar feels safer than the unknown. You fear abandonment, so you cling, and the clinging suffocates what you try to hold, and then you tell yourself, see, everyone leaves, and the loop tightens like a noose you tie, and then blame on gravity. You fear betrayal, so you test people with small cuts to see if they'll bleed for you, and they do until they don't, and you say, I knew it. And the prophecy fulfills itself because you wrote it with the ink of your past. This is how darkness writes fate: one fear disguised as wisdom, one old wound wearing today's clothes, one triggered reaction masquerading as a decision. Projection is how the shadow crosses the room. You accuse others of lust when your own hunger terrifies you. You condemn their ambition because yours is exiled in a locked chest labeled shame. You call them controlling while you orchestrate every conversation to land where you feel strong. You call them lazy while you procrastinate on your real work in the most productive ways possible. You become an expert at everything but your own life. You become a master of explaining why you can't do the one thing your bones were built to do. The shadow loves this. It is delighted to see you righteous. It is delighted to see you selfless. It is delighted to see you admired. It will be delighted, too, to watch you quietly break under the load of the character you're playing. You can't bargain with a wound. It wants the original thing. The apology you never got, the protection that never came, the love that was conditional, the permission to be imperfect without being exiled. You can't time travel, but you can grow the spine that wasn't grown for you. You can become the one who says, "I see you," to the exiled pieces. You can invite your jealousy to sit at the table and tell you where you are starving. You can invite your anger to speak before it becomes violent in thought or silence. You can tell your pride to stand next to you, strong but not above you, a pillar, not a throne. You can look at your fear and say, "Walk with me." But you don't get to drive. This is not gentle work. It is not meant to be. Strength is born from tension, not from ease. Jung spoke of the task not to become pure light, but to carry light into the dark. Not to erase the shadow, but to integrate it, to make a marriage of what you are and what you pretend not to be. Boundaries without an owned shadow are paper walls. Keenness without an owned shadow is submission wearing perfume. Courage without an owned shadow is recklessness, dressed as bravery. You don't need to be harmless. You need to be disciplined. You need to be capable of consequences and choose restraint. A blade in a sheath, not a blunt stick. A yes that means yes. A no that means no. Teeth that you show rarely because you don't have to bear them to be believed. Consider the moments you exploded. You weren't cruel because you are cruel. You were cruel because you were quiet for too long. Consider the promises you broke. You didn't lie because you are a liar. You lied because you were performing a self you could not sustain. The path forward is not punishment. It is ownership. Own that you want recognition, and take the actions that earn it instead of resenting those who have it. Own that you want power, and build the competence and character to wield it cleanly. Own that you are jealous, and let that jealousy tell you where you are not yet living with honesty. Own that you are lonely because you refuse to be seen for real, and then take the risk of being seen, unpolished, unedited, skin without a filter, breath without a script. Listen for the small lies. I don't care. You do. It's fine. It isn't. I'm over it. You've been carrying it for years. I'm just tired. You're afraid. I'm just busy. You're avoiding. Count how many times a day you sentence yourself to a fate you don't want by these phrases. Your words carve grooves in your mind. Your mind carves grooves in your actions. Your actions carve grooves in your days until days turn into years. And then you call the grooves destiny. Make space for silence that isn't empty. Sit with your eyes open and your defenses down like a warrior without armor, not to be stabbed, but to feel. Put the phone in another room. Let the nervousness crawl up your spine and don't fix it. Ask yourself, what truth am I most afraid to feel? Let the answer arrive as heat, as memory, as a sentence you don't want to write. Write it anyway. Nobody has to see it but you. You don't fix the shadow by confessing on a stage. You begin by confessing to the mirror without excuses. You say, I have wanted to hurt people when I was hurt. I have flirted with ruin because it made me feel alive. I have used kindness to control. I have pretended ignorance to avoid responsibility. I have taken pride in how much I suffer. I have rehearsed revenge in my head. I have lied to keep my image intact. And then you breathe, and you don't make it pretty. You let it be ugly, and in the ugliness, you sense the electricity. This is my power, untapped, untrained, waiting for my hand. Do you think morality is about being clean? Or is it about being honest about how dirty your mind can be and choosing to build a life that channels the force instead of denying it? The most dangerous people are not the ones who own their darkness. They are the ones who pretend they have none. They harm with good intentions. They are certain while being blind. They cut others with soft words. They never apologize because they never allow themselves to see what they did. Do not become that. Do not become the smiling wound. Become the person whose eyes have looked at their own rage and did not drown, whose hands have held the urge to manipulate and did not act, whose spine has felt the weight of shame and did not collapse. That is a person who can be trusted. That is a person who can trust themselves. And what of fear? It will not leave you. It is the gatekeeper at the edges of your new life. Breathe with it. Name it. Fear says if you change, you will be alone. Answer, I will find the ones who see me. Fear says if you stop pleasing, they will reject you. Answer, then I will be rejected by those who loved my mask and loved not me. Fear says if you claim your voice, you will fail publicly. Answer, then I will fail publicly, and I will be freer than I have ever been. Fear says, if you stop pretending, you will see how much of your life was built on pretense. Answer, then I will grieve, and I will build. This is alchemy. To turn what was lead into something that gleams, you don't throw the lead away. You heat it. You watch what burns off. You stand in the smoke without backing out. Heat is attention. Fire is honesty. The smoke is the stories leaving. The metal left is you, heavy, resilient, complete. The shadow is not an enemy to be killed. It is a king you dethroned who still has the maps of your kingdom. Learn from it. Seat it at the table and let it advise, not rule. Integrate, and your life stops swinging between extremes. Integrate, and your no becomes elegant. Your yes becomes clean. Integrate, and fate becomes less of a storm and more of a sea you know how to sail. There will be a price. Transparency costs you the safety of old illusions. Integration costs you the comfort of blame. Strength costs you the shelter of smallness. It is easier to say, they made me, than to say, I didn't set a boundary. It is easier to say, life is unfair, than to say, I avoided the work that would make it fairer. It is easier to say, I'm unlucky, than to track the exact moment the old habit whispered and you obeyed. But calling it fate won't save you. It will only make your cage poetic. I am not asking you to become abrasive. I am asking you to become aligned, to hold the full truth of what you are capable of, the terrible and the beautiful, and choose. The power to choose is what freedom feels like. It will feel like fear, because power is heavy, and you've trained your wrists to hold only what keeps you invisible. Start small. Say what you actually believe once a day. Disappoint someone who expects you to be a character in their story. Keep a promise you made to yourself when nobody is watching. Tell the truth quickly when you mess up. These are not tips. They are rituals. They are the movements that teach your nervous system you belong to you. If you ignore this, the shadow doesn't punish you. It does what it always does. It directs. It directs your attention to drama. It directs your energy to resentment. It directs your ambition to competitions that don't matter. It directs your desire to people who don't have the capacity to hold it. It directs your kindness toward those who will drink until you are dry. It directs your intelligence to build perfect arguments for keeping everything exactly the same. You will call it maturity. You will call it realism. You will call it a phase. It will be your life. I think of the man who makes jokes any time the conversation gets close to him. Everyone loves him. He dies never having been touched. I think of the woman who never says no because her identity is a halo. She smiles into exhaustion, then resents in the dark. I think of the friend who has ideas that could change his world. He convinces himself there is a perfect time that somehow never arrives. I think of the parent who controls because they confuse safety with obedience, and then wonders why their child leaves as soon as they can. I think of the leader who manipulates because he cannot tolerate not being the reason things work, and so everything rots under his praise. These are not villains. They are us when we let the shadow steer and pretend we are only passengers. To take the wheel, you will need courage and tenderness in equal measure. Courage to face what you've done and what you could do. Tenderness to forgive the part of you that chose to survive in ugly ways when you didn't know better. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is not excusing. It is acknowledgement that the self-you had limits and that the self-you can grow beyond them. Without forgiveness, you will sabotage your growth by insisting you don't deserve it. Without courage, you will learn everything and change nothing. The knife and the balm. You need both. There is an honesty that hurts like a clean wound. Seek it. There is a shame that rots. Refuse it. When you meet your darkness, meet it with standards that do not bend and with compassion that does not collapse. Speak to it like a commander who loves the soldier but will not tolerate friendly fire. You want to fight? Fine. Fight for me, not against me. You want attention? You'll get it when you help me build, not when you burn my plans at 2 a.m. because fear woke up and needed a snack. You want respect? Earn it by telling me the truth before I humiliate myself, not by screaming when it's too late to fix it. Life will still wound you. People will still disappoint you. Plans will still fall apart. Integration is not a spell against chaos. It is a way to be unshaken at the core when chaos visits. Fate, then, is not something done to you. It is something you do with what happens. It is the accumulation of chosen responses. You cannot control the weather, but you can learn your seas. You cannot control other people, but you can stop selling your agency for the price of admiration. Control is an illusion that breeds panic. Influence is a practice that breeds quiet power. Influence begins within over your attention, your state, your words, your choices. Most people wait for permission. They wait for conditions. They wait to be sure. They wait until waiting becomes their identity. Stop waiting. Set a time today to sit in the dark with yourself and ask the worst question. What am I pretending not to know? And when the answer comes, move 1 inch. One call you've delayed. One boundary you imply but don't speak. 1 hour on the work that could change your year. One apology that would unclench your jaw. Don't post about it. Don't ask for applause. The shadow doesn't yield to exhibitions. It yields to evidence. You will lose people. You will lose versions of yourself. Grieve them. The grief is honest. But you will gain something the old you could not hold. You will gain a self that trusts itself. You will gain a life with fewer ghosts at the table. You will gain the capacity to love without hunger and to be loved without acting like a god or a beggar. You will gain the ability to look in the mirror without immediately rearranging your soul to look like a saint. You will meet the strength that never needed a mask to be beautiful. There will be nights when you want to run back into the arms of your old fate. Familiar pain offers a cradle. You will stand in your kitchen at 1 a.m., staring at the same refrigerator, feeling the old whisper, "This is too hard." It is not too hard. It is unfamiliar. If you can endure the unfamiliar long enough, it becomes yours. Some mornings you will wake up and the old reflex will return. You will catch it. You will smile. You will say, "Not today. Not again." That smile is a revolution. That sentence is a sword. The shadow will test you, let it. Tests turn motion into memory, memory into identity. And when the world expects your mask, you can give them your face. When your fear expects you to flinch, you can hold your ground with a steady breath. When your pride expects you to win, you can learn and lose without turning your lesson into a reason to hate. When your loneliness expects you to accept anyone, you can wait for what respects who you are. When manipulation expects you to play the old game, you can refuse with dignity, without a speech, without a scene, without guilt. The darkness will stand beside you like an old enemy who has become an ally. You will be powerful, not because you conquered your shadow, but because you practiced sitting with it and telling it the truth. Somewhere inside, there is a version of you who didn't think they'd make it here. Thank them for keeping you alive. Then take the wheel. The road ahead is not promised, but neither is the prison behind. Your fate is not the story that was handed to you. It is the story you write when the lights are off and there is nobody to impress. It is the way you hold yourself when you fail. It is the way you repair when you harm. It is the way you stand when the urge to kneel returns. It is the decision you make when the old pain calls you by name and sounds like home. So open the door, sit in the room. Name what sits with you. Ask it what it wants. Show it where it belongs. Unite your hands with what you're afraid of holding. You do not have to be loved for this. You do not have to be seen. You have to be honest, and you have to be relentless. And if you are, you will watch your life bend. People will call it luck. They will call it timing. They will call it fate. You will call it something simpler. You will call it yourself awake at last. On your darkness, or it will own your days and name itself destiny. If this made you think deeply, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe for more.